Welcome back to Nick Lenz's Comic Corner, Classics as Non-Classic. This is episode number 715 and Doubleshot number 619. One DC related trade, not DC trade particularly, but related trade, and one Marvel trade. Alright? The one from DC was published from the Vertigo imprint. This is Fables, the Deluxe edition, book 1. Of 14. Yeah, there's 14 of these things. I have books 2 through 11 on hold from the library. I'm going to pick them up Tuesday. Yeah. Those of you curious, though, what is Fables? Fables is simply put a series written by Bill Willingham, and he wrote the series the entire time for 150 issues. It's rare you see a writer stay a book for this long. Not many writers can do this. I know for a fact that Eric Larson is still doing Savage Dragon after all this period of time. There's also the writer of Usagi Jimbo, Stan Stoddak, I think his name is, still writing him. Mike Mignola is still doing the Hellboy franchise. He's been doing it since the early 90s. You have Todd McFarlane, who's been mostly, he's still writing the book, but he's taken a few breaks for mostly about a year or two, but mostly he's still on the book. He's written a majority of the series come out. You also have Robert Kirkham, who actually is currently the writer of books like Walking Dead, Super Dinosaur, and Outcast. Now, Walking Dead is almost 200 issues in, and by this time next year we'll hit issue 200, and of course, Spawn was announced that it will hit, exactly 1 year from now, will hit issue 300. Fables is exactly like, what if all the fairy tale creatures from classic fairy tales existed in real life, and of course they do mention that they're based on stories. Now, the setting of the way this series works out is that they live in a place in New York City called, this community called Fabletown. The mayor is King Cole, the deputy mayor is Snow White. And those of you curious though, did she marry Prince Charming? Yes, but she's divorced from him. Yep. Oh, and I found this bit interesting. She had a sister named Rose Red. I'm thinking, Rose Red? Snow White doesn't have a sister. She actually does. From the German version of the Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs. Yeah, the German version of Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs, she actually did have a sister named Rose Red. And get this, Rose Red's boyfriend is Jack, as from Jack and the Beanstalk. Yep. The same guy from that one. The sheriff, of course, at this point, they actually changed it later. It's actually a guy named Bigby, who actually is the big bad wolf from the Three Little Pigs story. I'm not kidding, he really is, and he's basically a werewolf. He has a werewolf type transformation, from what I know about him later. And despite being published under Vertigo, at this point in the series, there is no nudity. Yeah, there's none in the first 10 issues, which is actually quite nice for the writer to do. Is there violence in here? Very little. I mean, the violence doesn't actually start up until the second arc. I mean, yeah, there's blood in the first issue, but you don't see a slaughter. Yep. Now, those of you curious, like, how many trades did the original trade series for Fables last for? There was exactly 22 volumes released. The last volume only came out 2 years ago. Actually, 3 years ago came out. Yep. And with the deluxe edition, actually it was like 15 of these things. I thought it was 14, my mistake. Yeah, there's 15 of these books. And Fables has also had several spin-off series, like Jack of Fables, which was an ongoing series. At least 3 miniseries. There's The Liberals. There's 2 Cinderella series, an actual novel that Bill Willingham actually wrote. There is a couple other spin-off ongoing series. One is called Ferris. That lasted for a couple years before it ended. And then when this series ended, they replaced it with Ever After, which featured the children. Two of the 7 children that Snow White and Bilby had. Yeah, they later become a couple later on the series. And it was sort of like a spy series. It was interesting, though, but it ended abruptly after only 12 issues. It was written by Matthew Sturgis, but Bill Willingham was still credited as the writer. They also have had a couple of video games. Basically, Fables is probably from Vertigo, one of the most successful Vertigo properties of all time. Yep, one of the most successful ones. And do you know when this series started? You really? Okay. The series started back in 2002. Yep. This series published for 13 years. Yes, 13 years. Let's see. Overall, I had 3 miniseries, a couple one-shots. Yeah, I read the novel, which is about, I think it's about Peter Pan, I think it is. It's, Peter and Max. Yeah, Peter and Max. It's Peter Piper. Yeah, it's Peter Piper and, Bo Peep. Yep. The Fables Wolf Among Us was a comic book, but it was a digital first. Yeah. Now, 2 stories in here. First, you have the first story, which is called, if I can find it here. I know what the second story is called. The first one is called Legends in Exile, which kind of like a murder mystery of this one, where Bilby and Snow White are investigating the apparent death of Rose Red, Snow White's sister. The story kind of starts out with Jack basically going to Bilby himself, telling him that apparently something has happened to Rose. She's completely disappeared. And they're investigating a possible murder. Of course, Snow White kind of investigates him. There's actually a guy who Rose would marry. No, it's not Prince Charming. It's some other guy. It's some very sleazy guy. And they also have friends get Prince Charming, which they reveal that apparently Rose actually ruined her Snow White and Prince Charming's marriage. They do reveal that Prince Charming has remarried since he divorced Snow White. And in case you're curious though, did Snow White and Prince Charming ever have any children when they were married? No, they never did. Not that the series knows of anyways. Yeah, so yeah, they show King Cole off. King Cole doesn't really do very much in here. For the whole series, he does virtually nothing. He's more like a figure. He basically leaves a lot of the lot of the responsibility of basically being in charge of Fabletown to Snow White herself. Yep. And Beauty and the Beast. Yep. They're in here as well. They don't really play a role in this series that much. And of course, later on, Beast himself takes over the role of Sheriff. Then Bilby when he retires. Oh yeah, and here's the thing though. All of these characters are immortal. Well, kind of anyways. They can still die. They've lived for a long period of time. And they're from a place called the Homelands, which apparently is someplace in Europe. And I'll talk about in a minute about where they're actually supposed to go. And it turns out with the whole thing with the first arc, it turns out Rosa was actually alive and well. And it was all a scam to get out of a marriage she did not want at all. She was kind of forced into it. Yeah, so divorced to hell quietly. So like it was a really interesting little story to start off the series. The way the final issue ended of the arc, it kind of felt like a pilot episode of a series, and it showed a little more. They make references to the farm, which they do explore that in the second arc, where apparently Rose Red apparently leads a revolution against Fabletown for some reason, and then she's contradicted at the end of the arc. There was briefly in the arc where, sorry about the glare. Yeah, briefly in the arc, get the thing to stand. Yeah, briefly in the arc, Snow White is held captive along with the administrator of the farm. The farm is basically for the non-human animals where they live, because they can't exactly live in New York City because it's kind of weird to see talking animals in New York City. Though some of the 3 little pigs actually show up there. At the start of this arc, one of the 3 little pigs is murdered. Is it done by Bigby? Nope. He has nothing to do with this murder at all. It turns out that this pig was actually murdered by another pig. Yeah, they actually feel this was really weird. Like, why in the world would a pig kill another pig because he found out about the revolution? Yeah, and this whole revolution thing was put down very quickly. And they all tried. The pig who actually led the revolution, he was executed. A few of them were left because of good service. And the administrator stepped down and replaced by Rose Red, who took over administrator of the farm, and that's what's left off there. This was a great way to start off this particular series. I should point out the artwork in here is done by a few different artists on here. If I can find the artist on here, if I can find the page. Okay, the artwork in here is done by at least 4 different artists: Land Medina, Mark Buckingham, Steve Luna, and Craig Hamilton. The original cover art is done by James Jean. Yeah, that's the one that does the original cover art in here. Fantastic series. I love Bill Willingham's writing. He makes every single character interesting. This is actually one of like outside of this franchise, the only other series I've read with Bill Willingham was the writer of was Robin. He had an odd run for Robin. His run only lasted for like 2 years before he left. Yep. I'm going to give this book a 9.5 out of 10. It's really good. I highly recommend checking out Fables. It's a great series. I am planning on reviewing more trades of that one. Yep. And speaking of more trades, here's another trade from this series. Now, I reviewed Volume 2 of this already. I have owned this trade. As of now, for almost 10 years, I've owned this trade. And this is sat on my shelf. Hasn't got any dust. And it's in great shape for a book that is almost 10 years old. And I purchased this in the store like not long after. That was immediately per se. It was like about a month or two after it came out. And that is Dark Avengers Volume 1 Assemble. Written by Brian Michael Bendis and artwork by Mike Deodato. Yep. The Dark Avengers lineup at this point in time, well, for the first 5 issues, is made up of these following people: Iron Patriot, aka Norman Osborn, also known as Green Goblin; Miss Marvel, aka Carla Softon, aka Moonstone; Daken, the son of Wolverine, who also became Wolverine in the series; Bullseye, Hawkeye, aka Bullseye; Spider-Man, aka Venom, aka Scorpion, real name Matt Gorgon. They also have Ares, the God of War, Sentry, and only for the first 5 issues, Norval, I think his name is. He's a new Captain Marvel. He was only Captain Marvel for a very brief period of time, just for this arc. He did pop up in a few other books as Captain Marvel, but he didn't do very much. Yeah, and the first 5 issues of this run is, simply put, the Avengers, the Dark Avengers, going on a mission to save Doctor Doom, who actually had been released from prison by Norman Osborn as one of his first acts of power. One of the first things he did was to release Doctor Doom from prison. Doctor Doom had been in prison for at least for a couple years. He was captured by Tony Stark and Nick Fury. His castle was destroyed. In case you're curious, when was his castle destroyed? Yeah, because the castle's in ruins in here. That was destroyed during the miniseries Secret War, which also introduced Daisy Johnson to the Marvel Comic Universe, which later brought her into S.H.I.E.L.D., the Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. TV show. They liberated the country, and those of you curious though, who is the main villain of this arc? Why, Morgan Le Fay. Yep, this particular trade also introduces not only Dark Avengers themselves, also the first appearance of Hammer and Victoria Hamble, the first chronological appearance of her, because even though this was published after her first appearance, which was in Invincible Iron Man Volume 5, Number 8. I should point this out, though, about Norman Osborn. Yeah, the artist had sort of a humorous reputation of drawing Norman Osborn to look like... well, I'm going to find a good picture of him. They do have the actual Miss Marvel pop up in here for just as opening issue. She appears ever again. I'm not sure why in the world, when the artist drew her, they had to have it where her costume really is like running up her rear end. I have no idea why. Oh, here's a picture of him. Yeah, drawn like Tommy Lee Jones. Yep. He drew him like this the entire series. In case you're curious though, was he drawn like this in any other comic he appeared in? No. He never was. At all. Of course, there was a joke rolling around that Tommy Lee Jones would have been a great Norman Osborn. Nowadays, since it's been almost 10 years since the series has been published, there is no chance of him actually doing it. Yeah, Miss Marvel, the original one anyways, is asked to join, this new Avengers group. Says, according to her boss is Tony Stark. And according to Norman Osborn, Tony Stark is fugitive. So she resigns in the Avengers, though she does later on join the new Avengers. Yeah, she does. And she remains part of that group, basically with the Dark Reign, up until Brian Michael Bendis leaves the Avengers group, until he stops writing Avengers in 2012. Of course, toward the end of his run, he did. That was also in a period of time when she became Captain Marvel, because she had been Miss Marvel since the 1970s. Yep. So, because she turned down Norman Osborn, turning a team, he turns to a Thunderbolt. A founding member of the Thunderbolts, Moonstone. She becomes Miss Marvel, and she wears sort of a variant. She basically wears Carol Danvers' first costume as Miss Marvel. Yep. And of course, later on, after the first arc, Hawkeye does that infamous scene where at that point he's called Ronin, and he basically denounces as these Avengers not being the true Avengers, where he called them all sociopaths and murderers. Well, in the case of all of them, at this point, I think the only person who wasn't murdered was Sentry. Yeah, he was the only person I could think of who never actually killed anybody. I know for a fact Matt Gorgon has. Matter of fact, Bendis and Warren Ellis basically made him into a cannibal. Well, basically made him symbiote cannibal. Yeah. So, and also the new Captain Marvel at this point, he never killed anybody either. Though here's something really weird. In issue 5, after they completed their mission in Latveria, you have Marvel Boy Captain Marvel, walking probably back to his room, and then he just happened to be walking by Carla Soften's room. She asks him, what are you doing right now? He says, nothing. And then she says, then come on in here. And then they proceed to have sex. Not kidding about that, they do. They have sex. Yeah. And that's a weird thing about Carla Soften. She has sex with half the guys in the team, which makes her a player. I mean, throughout the course of the series, she didn't do it in the main series, though, with one of them. She did it with Bullseye. She didn't do it with Matt Gargan, surprisingly. Nope. She didn't do it with Ares or Sentra. She did it with Daken in his own series. And she slept with Bullseye in the meeting room. I'm not kidding about this. And Norman Osborn actually watched them do it, which is a bizarre thing for him to do. Yeah, and also Victoria Hand had to point out, though, after the first arc, that apparently Norman Osborn has not slept since he actually took power. And he's probably been in power at this point for probably, if you read all 5 issues, they take place over the course of a few hours. I would say roughly, by the time issue 5 or 6 rolls around, it's only been, I'd say about 2 or 3 days since he took power. So, she puts her foot down by him going on a mission, and he decides to stay, because he wants to burn Cannonball Fence. At one point in the series, he actually assembles the Cabal, which, that was something which was also Bendis' creation. The Cabal is sort of an evil version of the Illuminati. They're made up of Norman Osborn, Emma Frost, Namor, Doctor Doom, the female Loki. That was something JMS came up with. Not Bendis, that was JMS. And the Hood, a.k.a. Parker Robbins. I should point out that the Hood was actually a creation of Brian K. Vaughan. I just want to be sure about that. As far as I know, he is. Let's see. Let's see. I just want to be sure about this, just to be sure. Yeah. He is. He is a creation of Brian K. Vaughan. I'm like, that's interesting, the fact that he is. And he appears as part of Norman Osborn's Cabal. When the Cabal first show up in this series, they're being watched by Morgan Le Fay. Yep. And the thing is that there's 2 versions, one in present day, the other, of course, in the past. And Doom's like, okay, we can't kill her here, so he transports her to 1 billion BC, basically the UK in basically 1 million BC with dinosaurs and cavemen, which is really weird. Oh yeah, and Norman Osborn says basically, after saving his country, says, you're on your own and you're welcome. And then the issue ends with Norman Osborn putting his castle back together. Yeah, he would remain like this for about the next 6 years. Yep. From this point forward, up until 2015, he lived in that castle. Once Secret Wars happened, he stopped living in the castle. Yep. Overall, really great trade. I love this thing. I'm going to give this book a 9.75 out of 10. It's really, really good. I love reading Bendis Avengers stuff because I'm a huge fan of it. And I was reading the best I can when this stuff was coming out. Yeah, as soon as I found a trade because I couldn't find the sites readings online. So I read these things when they came out in trade, like in store. Of course, now I own these trades. Well, I don't own the Fables trade, but I do own the... Yeah. And... Yeah, even though this cost $25, I actually got this for a discount. I got it for I think I got a coupon to get this one. Yeah, but I've owned this one for a long time. This is sat on my shelf. And I only read this book once. And this one I think is really good. It's just sitting on my shelf for a long period of time. Even after I moved. That was the only time it actually was moved from my shelf. And I decided I really wanted to review something because my other trade I had was a trade I had all reviewed already, so I reviewed it about 2 years ago. Apparently I also reviewed the second volume of Justice League America, Survivors of Evil. Yeah. But that one I didn't mind. Legend of Dark Knight, I've already reviewed it already. So I decided to review something for myself, so I picked this one. Yep. Overall, really, really good. It is by far a damn good trade. I'm hoping maybe when I go to Comic-Con, not this coming Saturday, it's actually the following Saturday, where maybe I'll get my hands on the final trade of this, and plus several other trades. But one thing I'm hoping to get my hands on is final trade of this one, because I almost got this entire collection. Bendis Avengers has always been very good. There is, as far as I can tell, I've read every single issue of Bendis' era for Avengers from 2004 to 2012. With the exception of Disassembled, he's never had a bad issue published. And lucky enough, he kept this artist around for New Avengers, which you got to praise him for doing that, for the relaunch of New Avengers in 2010. He kept this artist around because he knew this artist is really good. This is actually one of a few different artists he's actually collaborated over the years, along with Alex Maleev and the artists who co-created Jessica Jones with him. Those three I can think of, the only ones I know of, he's had freaking collaboration with. He has done anything much with David Finch lately. I'm hoping, because he's at DC now, I'm hoping he has Finch do an issue of Superman. I hope that happens, because that will be a dream reunion, because the last of these two worked together on a comic book was actually Moon Knight. Yes, Moon Knight. The volume that happened in 2012. Yeah, so it's been a good 6 years since these two been on a book together, but that's the last book I could think of they worked on a book together, because they only worked on 2 books. They worked on New Avengers, he did the first year of the book, and on and off he skipped a few issues, and of course the entirety of Moon Knight Volume 4. Yeah, I'm hoping maybe he could do it, but it just depends on exactly what Bendis wants to do with Superman. But my hope is that him and Bendis do an issue of Superman, maybe an annual. He should do Bendis should do an annual, probably next year or so, or at some point, where he does all the stories, but every story is done by an artist where he's freaking collaborate, like Mike Gallos, Alex Maleev, David Finch, any artist he's collaborated with over the years, have them draw every single story. Yep, I hope that happens in the future. All right, so that is it for this episode. I still have 3 more videos I plan to do today. Reviews for One Piece, My Hero Academia, and the 7 Deadly Sins. You'll find my thoughts on those videos a little bit later, okay? But I'll see you in the next video. Bye.